meeting of the Equity Board at 6:03 p.m. And we have quorum this evening, Joanne?
Yes, we do.
Fantastic. Would you like to call the roll?
Yeah, I would love to.
Thank you.
All right, if you're present, please say so. Leslie Millender Irwin,
Present.
Martha Kashina, Heather Youngs,
Present.
Vicky Moody Pan,
Here.
Varnica, Lorna Gilmore, she has an excused absence tonight. Chris Sadie,
Present.
Oscar Montano,
Present.
Juan Palmer, Kelly Munn,
Present.
Nisha Nair, and Kunal. All right.
Great, fantastic. And this is a part of our meeting this evening where we are open for public comments. So do we have any members of the public that would like to speak at this evening's meeting?
Yes, I
Yes, sir.
am Victor, and I am a member of the community for many years, a sculptor, artist, and just someone who cares about transportation and the safety of the kids getting back and forth with their new hot rod electrical vehicles that are speeding and having fun. So yeah, I'm just here to see if I can help in any way.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Victor.
Thank you for having me.
Victor, could I have your last name just for the record?
Victor White.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Everybody calls me the Moss Man. Let me stick around long enough, I'll grow in.
Fantastic. All right, our next agenda item would be the approval of the minutes from the September 3rd, 2025 Equity Board meeting. So they're inside of your meeting packets. If everyone would like to take a moment to review the minutes and let me know if you have any comments, changes, additions. Okay, were there any comments or corrections to the minutes of September 3rd? Okay, looks like there are not. So may I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of September 3rd, 2025 of the Equity Board?
I can make a motion to approve.
Fantastic.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay. Guess we can call for the vote to approve the minutes.
I think if there's no discussion, I think they're just approved.
Oh, just approved? Okay. I'm doing my meetings at my meeting.
No, you're
Okay.
good. You're good.
Okay. All right, fantastic. So the chair report. So opening question, I thought we could have a fun question tonight, which is if you could have any supernatural power just for Halloween night, what would it be? So if you could have any supernatural power just for Halloween night, which I do believe is next week, what would it be? So who would like to start? And I think we should start with the folks on Zoom.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Probably flying. I like flying and travel, so I think it'd be perfect to kind of like take that opportunity and just like jet all around to different places, you know, with the flight ability. And yeah.
That sounds fun. So let's see.
I'll go next. Just
Yeah, Heather?
piggybacking off of that. Yeah, teleportation would be great. Skip the lines, travel, go anywhere I want.
What about Dale?
Oh my gosh, what a good question. I have to agree with Chris. Immediately flying came to mind. Being able to zip around, get to the next house or the next neighborhood quickly would be key.
Fun. Let's see, and we have Nisha. So Nisha.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry to be late.
No worries. So the opening question for tonight is, if you could have any supernatural power just for Halloween night, what would it be?
Oh, that's good. I think the travel. I think the ability to go from every single house to get candy in the world would be incredible.
Oh, that's me in the world.
In the world. Go big or go home.
I think we got all of our Zoomers. Who wants to go next?
Uh-oh. Time travel. I would love to see my family in the past and in the future.
You took my answer.
Very cool. I'll go next. I'm gonna have to say teleportation. That was the one that I thought about today. That would be so neat to go anywhere in minutes and then come back and then go again. So yes.
Very cool. I can go next.
Sure.
To be able to create whatever treat anyone wants instantly.
Ooh.
I would say something along the lines like the Flash, being able to run everywhere to see as much candy and see as many haunted houses as I possibly could.
So Cornflakes was very kind. I would be going the opposite direction. I was thinking being invisible so I could totally sneak up and scare people for real.
Real Halloween. Victor, do you want to share?
Oh, I thought this was just for y'all. but-
Oh, you're here with us. So if you could have any supernatural power for Halloween, what would it be?
Hercules.
Right?
I would like Hercules power. That way I could lift up anything for one night and I would be moving a lot of things that are kind of blocking the salmon from doing their thing, blocking the people from doing their thing. And just for one night, just to help out nature and people.
All right. Very nice.
Like,
Well, thank you guys. I love all these great responses. Fantastic.
Jeff, I don't know who.
I know who Jeff is.
I was gonna say.
He might be a relative. Yeah, and he might be there with my father. So, Jeff Irwin, our opening question for this evening is, if you could have any supernatural power just for Halloween night, what would it be?
Yeah, she's asking me that question. It would be to breathe underwater.
Ooh.
I've scuba dived and it's like a whole different world down there.
Okay. Very cool.
And yes, your father is here.
Hello, Les, father.
Hello.
We have a special guest, Les Villander, visiting from California.
Thank you, guys. It's great answers. All right, it looks like our next item on the agenda is our staff report from Jillian.
Thank you. All right. So I have a couple of updates for you all. So I think you'll recall that at our last meeting, there was a lot of prep for Culture Fest. And then that happened that week. Deputy Council President Dee Michelle had interest in using that equity versus equality signboard at the farmers market. It didn't end up happening because of like space at the booth. But I think there might be interest in using it at future events. So it's stored at City Hall, and I'll make sure that Dale knows where that is at for you all, or if council wants to use that, because I think that went really well.
Nice.
All right. So this meeting was originally scheduled to be a joint meeting with the Transportation Advisory Board. There are two purposes to this meeting. The first was going to be to discuss refining the equity considerations in the city's transportation projects and to discuss the Issaquah Climate Action Plan update with the Transportation Advisory Board. So the transportation portion of this is going to be deferred until next year. We adopt an annual transportation improvement plan, or TIP, but it's actually adopted every 2 years as part of the larger capital improvements plan, which includes capital projects for our parks, facilities, sewer, stormwater, our different utility projects. So we thought that if we were going to potentially look at the equity considerations, we should do it with all city projects in mind and not just this narrow set of transportation projects. So the next CIP will be will kick off the CIP process in 2027. So next year we'll likely review some of the equity criteria for the capital improvement plan. So that's been deferred. It hasn't been taken off the list. There's a memo in the, I think maybe other business portion of your agenda that explains that from the administration. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that. The ICAP update was deferred until November 19th. At that meeting, the sustainability program manager will come and provide an update on where they're at with their ICAP update efforts. And they'll be asking for one or two of you to join their metrics committee to review selected metrics from the ICAP plan for equity in mind. This was removed from the agenda just because it made more sense to talk to equity board about equity related items and talk to Tab about the transportation portion of the ICAP. So that's why it's no longer a joint meeting, just a regular meeting of the equity board. Are there any questions? Yeah.
What is ICAP?
Oh, the Issaquah Climate Action Plan.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes. A related comment.
Okay.
The King County Strategic Climate Action Plan was just approved by County Council maybe yesterday. And so I don't know if there's an opportunity for the ICAP for them to explore aligning with that for more regional impact.
Yeah, our sustainability division is awesome, and I'm sure they're already aware, but I'll ping them and let them know.
Yeah.
All right, and then you all see Dale Markey Crimp on the line. She is back in action, so she'll be your liaison starting November 19th, and I won't be your liaison anymore. I do just want to say thank you. I've been a liaison for an Issaquah Border Commission, and you all were really patient with me. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you all and to work on equity items. I'm sure I'll be back in front of you with the equity assessment and any number of other things, but you'll see Dale in this chair starting in November.
Well, we want to thank you for all of your tireless work, your patience with a lot of us newbies here, and the guidance and just the positive energy that you've brought to the role. I appreciate you, and I want to thank you very much for everything you've done. So thank you.
Thanks a lot.
You're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The role as the liaison, but I'm new to these types of meetings, but I don't know.
Yeah. So our city advisory boards and commissions advise the mayor and her administration on different policies and things like that, and the liaison role facilitates that advising. So brings topics to the board to consider, responds to board interest in different topics, and does some like administrative things, like this is a public meeting, so taking minutes and that kind of a thing. Yeah. Speaking of the fact that Dale will be back for the November 19th meeting, you all have a request from her to see which date works better for your December meeting, either December 10th or 17th. So if you haven't emailed her already about what date works better for you, you all won't be meeting on December 3rd. So just let her know which date works best. All right, and that is all I've got.
So we're going to go to, I guess, our next agenda item, and that's the equity assessment RFP review.
Yes, and this is me as well. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. The RFP is in your packet for those of you who are in the room, or the link is there for those of you joining And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about it and to get a little bit of feedback from all of you on the draft RFP. And then we'd also like for one or two of you to serve on the selection committee for consultants. So I'd also like to understand your interest in doing that as we gear up for that. So we'll have 4 questions to discuss tonight. It's just broken out this way so that we can have a targeted discussion on all of these. So the first question is the proposed community engagement sufficient, considering both budget and need? And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. If not, what is missing? Are the proposed touch points with the equity board the right ones? Are there other places where this board thinks it should be involved? Ooh, okay. And then are the proposed deliverables the right ones? If not, what's missing from our deliverables list? And then are there one or two of you who'd like to assist with consultant selection? So just for a little bit of background, the last touch point with you all on this, just on the equity assessment as a whole, was actually in September 2024. I think you all remember that I was in front of you a fair few times in the last year with the Evans team. That group was really focused on city boards and commissions and taking a bite out of some of the assessment work there. This is the larger all city programs evaluation that we're talking about now. So when we last talked about this RFP as a whole, some of the feedback that I had gotten from you all was the importance of data, where to point staff to it, how to use it in evaluating our programs for equity. Also, I remember a lot of importance on getting community agreement on what the goals are, what equity means in Issaquah, noting that sometimes there's confusion in these conversations among staff, among other boards and commissions, among community members, among elected. So really getting everyone on the same page with what equity is going to mean here for us and what our goals are. And then you all had a fair bit of interest in equity board involvement. Also, you can shut the door if you want to. So you all had interest in participating perhaps in some of the community engagement. We really want to lean into you all as some of the experts in the community and people who care a lot about this. So this is one of the places where I'm going to ask for your feedback on the draft RFP. So this was drafted by the equity team over the course of the summer. That's that internal staff team that works on equity items. And it probably went to them 4 or 5 times just because this is a little bit tricky to navigate given the budget that we have for this. So we spent a lot of time talking about what actually made it into this RFP and how to get there with the funds that we have. It then went to our staff leadership team and the mayor for review, and they've signed off on what you see in front of you today. So you all are the last stop before publication. Okay. So overall, we have $50,000. And what we want to do with that $50,000, actually, let me back up for a second. We've talked about this project in 3 phases: goal setting, equity program evaluation or assessment, and then an equity action plan. We want to get through all of phase 1 with this $50,000 and take a bite out of phase 2. So really look at creating an assessment tool that we can use to evaluate our programs and have the consultant do a pilot review of 1 or 2 programs so that we can see how it works. We can build a little bit of staff capacity to continue work in phase 2. Phase 2 won't likely be complete at the end of this. But we know that we want to make progress, and we know that we want to do more than just visioning and goal setting. So that was really important to staff. So let me walk through the deliverables a little bit. So phase 1 goal setting is really focused on getting community input on what equity means in Issaquah. So the deliverables, I'll read them briefly here because I want your feedback on the public touch points and on the touch points with all of you. So we're asking for 1 meeting with staff on a staff developed community engagement plan. This is something that I would envision bringing to the equity board to get your sign off, get your input on. But we just know with our budget that we probably can't have the consultant design that plan. Rather, we'd like to have them give feedback on it, make sure it works for their goals and the work that they are going to need to do, but really have staff take on the brunt of that work. We also would like 1 or 2 facilitated meetings with community leadership. We think this is where we can get kind of the most bang for the buck for the consultant, knowing that they can be the experts to facilitate conversations with our council, with all of you, with other community leaders on what equity is and get us to those get us to those really broad equity goals. We don't think that maybe staff is best equipped to do that. Yeah.
So when you say equity goals and community engagement, is it to rise up and find out what people want us to do with equity? Or is it to find out where everybody is on equity?
It's to find out what they want us to do with equity. Where should we be going with equity, essentially? And I think a part of this conversation, and backing up from the deliverables for just a second, really the goal of phase one is to understand what level of trade-off is the community okay with in order to reach our equity goals? Because some of them will require trade-off, right? So really having those conversations to set a baseline knowledge, and then creating some pretty broad goals. Phase two is more of that, where is everyone at compared to where we want to be?
Okay.
Okay. So following those, a couple of meetings with community leadership to understand where we want to be, understanding our tolerance for some of those trade-offs. There's going to be a summary report on those meetings. We are going to ask the consultant to co-create presentation materials. And then we're going to ask that they come back to do a follow-up with the goal-setting findings. Because the consultant won't be engaged in every part of the public engagement, some of that will be undertaken by staff. We need to make sure that we bring it all together for council, for other elected leaders at the end. So that's what that fifth bullet is really referring to. And then we'd ask for their help in drafting the community-driven goals and vision for equity work. I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions about the phase one deliverables, just to clarify them.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying the consultant would be leading one or two meetings with community leadership and then not seeing what the bigger community engagement plan is, because I'm not, it's not been developed yet, but I think in previous meetings and conversations, there's kind of a sense that people are all over the place in terms of their understanding of equity. So to get to community consensus or some sort of level of agreement around goals could be really hard and challenging. If we have a, come y'all types, those types of community meetings.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think, it might be important to sequence the meetings. So I don't know whether the ones with the consultant with community leaders should come first to start framing out the shape of it, seeing how they frame up equity before it goes out to the broader community. Yeah. It's just something, because I think that could take a while. And one of my takeaways from the fair or the Culture Fest was that the youth really have a great handle on what equity is, and I'm not quite sure if our older, adult population do. So I don't know if that belongs in the RFP, but just something to think about with the community engagement.
Yeah, I think we've been really focused on getting to this RFP. Yeah. We haven't really turned our attention to the engagement plan, but that's something that we know we'd like to bring back.
One of the questions that I had was the second bullet, which is the 1 to 2 meetings with community leadership. Have we identified, I guess, our leaders within the community that would be invited into this process?
We haven't. We know it at minimum will include city council. Could you, thank you. But we haven't decided how big to cast that net, in part because we need to make sure it is targeted, because there can be too big of groups to, like you said, to have productive conversation. So at minimum council, but we know that there are organizations that we also need to bring into the fold.
Because that's going to affect ultimately how phase one kind of is borne out before we move to phase two.
Yeah.
And that the feedback from those individuals, I think it's very important that we're very thoughtful, or council is very thoughtful about who these community leaders are.
Okay.
Sorry, if I can add on to Leslie's comment, I think the recruitment, the outreach for these events is really critical, and we would want the voices who aren't normally showing up in those rooms.
Mhm.
And so, yeah.
Anyone online have any questions about the phase 1 deliverables? Okay, awesome. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I have a question. How much of the work that's done by the board or other related work that's done in the city that could be leveraged for some of this? Or it feels like some of this is starting from scratch.
Mhm.
Is there work that's already been done by the board or that could already be used in this process?
I'm not as certain about work that's already been done by the board. I think I might turn that question back to you all once we kind of get there. I think this is something that we've been thinking about, particularly that recruitment and outreach question. I know that's on our communications team mind at all times, and that's always the ask, right? To make sure that folks who haven't been at the table can be. So I think I can't point to anything definitively in terms of what we can build on yet, but yeah. Get back to my shared screen.
Would the council be observers or would they be participants?
They would be decision makers ultimately.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess decision makers, just to pick up on Kelly's question. So it brings up a concern in my mind. Is this a foregone conclusion in terms of where they want this process to go if they're, and I understand that, they're quote unquote writing the check. So therefore, but phase 1 seems like it should be an open-ended process that's going to allow participation, hearing different voices, that level of engagement that gets us to whatever the natural end result's going to be.
Mhm.
And so if they're a decision maker, what does that look like?
I think without getting into the weeds of a plan that hasn't been created, when I think about public participation, I really do think about I don't know if you all are familiar with the IAP2 scale, and it kind of walks through different kinds of public engagement, different tools you can use, and what level of engagement beyond your electeds can you really zero in on. So in something like for example, like an open house, that's a little bit of back and forth, but mainly like the people who are making the decision are just answering questions. They're mainly trying to inform everyone who attends. I think we'd like to structure this to be a little bit more intensive on the community engagement side of it to elevate the people who are in the room beside the elected officials. And that takes some deafness, right? To be able to say, council, I know that you're decision makers. I know that this is going to be a city project. But we invited these people in to provide input. We can't just disregard it. They have to be involved. That kind of thing. So there's ways that you can definitely do that and structure it and message it. So,
and I think that's what it drives the importance of the community leaders that are being reached out to. And I think Kelly and Priti both are really kind of touching on that, because that's what my concern is that different voices are heard and that their feedback is, as fulsome as it's going to kind of be utilized ultimately by our decision makers.
It sounds like a touch point for me is going to be to come back to you all with who should some of those community leaders be, and how to best invite them in if they haven't participated in something like this before.
I still have a question. As council members, they are the decision makers. And in a room of people who are going to be giving community engagement, if they're part of that discussion, then it biases the room immediately. because the more distance you are from usually talking to power, thank you, the less likely you are to say things. So it really, I'm just going to say that straight out. They should be listening. That's it. Because they're going to decide anyway. So they get to listen. They get to ask questions. They get to clarify. Is the way I see it.
Yeah, I think we want to be. Yeah, I think we want to try and leave space in the RFP to both hear from community leadership beyond elected officials, but also make sure that council is bought in enough, right? And that they have their own deliberation time, whatever that looks like, whether it's coming or not, right? To make sure that they are bought into the final product, right? To these equity goals. So we need to leave space in the RFP for both of them. Does that make sense?
Yes. They're asking us to do this. This is the engagement process we're all going to work together on. So it's not about them buying in. It's about them being in the process. And the process is they're asking for advice. Because if the process is they get to tell people, that's not community engagement. That's telling people.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm like. Okay. I used to work in community engagement. That's why this is sensitive.
I think within this process, the space that we're really holding is for the community leaders that are coming in and having these conversations. I think that, I mean, they ultimately have the opportunity, council, to make the decisions. I agree 100% with Kelly that their role is important, but the listening aspect and making space for all of the community leaders to really get that information to make sure that this process is really going to work. It's not going to be replicating what we may have already gotten, but it's new, it's different, and it's going to be hearing all of these people that have not been involved before, and perhaps some that have been, but just in a different way. And I know I participated in a focus group a couple of weeks ago, and an executive of my company was there, and I am convinced that she affected the ability of people to talk honestly, openly, and just, I mean, without feeling like they had to toe some type of line. So that kind of popped in my head when Kelly made her comment. And it's not to be negative or think that there's not a support from city council, but it's that their very presence can in fact inform how people communicate, how willing to be open that they are. So I think it's a consideration.
Let's return to this when we get to the question about deliverables, in part because when staff have talked about this, our concern and our focus was ensuring that the consultant, the subject matter experts, could really be there to facilitate a discussion with city council. That's where we felt like we needed some of their like expertise and ability to have a third party do that. So I want to make sure, I want to look at that list of deliverables and say that if we're adding more to this list, where can we take away to make sure that we can have maybe a separate, like keep those two groups separate, city council and other community leaders. Yeah.
So just one before you move on, the two takeaways I'm hearing is one, there's a lot of energy and interest in the equity board to definitely hear what to provide feedback on the community engagement plan that you all come up with. And I think the conversation that we've all been having is something that should be part of the RFP evaluation in terms of how the consultant would design and their component of the engagement. How do they talk about it with understanding power dynamics, who hasn't been in the room, all of those things should be things that are recognized as part of the points, process of the RFP.
Okay. I'm just taking some notes to add that. I don't know that that is a different deliverable. I think that's more like as we explain. Yeah.
Through the right consultant.
Oh, I switched it here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Okay. then moving on to explaining phase 2. So after we have these really like quite broad community goals around equity, these are not specific enough to necessarily be, targeted right at, the Parks and Rec classes or IPD stops or anything else. These are pretty broad. There'll probably be a few of them just to encompass all the different kinds of things that the city does. But it'll tell us where we're going. The next step is to evaluate a couple of programs against those goals. And that'll probably mean creating a couple of smaller sub goals that are more tailored to those areas, just to give you a sense of where we're going. So in order to get there, we'd like the consultant to create an equity program evaluation tool. They can adapt one that's already existing, but they have to create one in some way. We'd like them to evaluate 2 community programs using the tool, provide us with recommendations on how to refine it, and then recommendations on how to build staff capacity to use the tool. Because that's ultimately the goal, is we don't want to have to contract with someone every time we want to do one of these evaluations. We want to be able to bring it in-house, especially knowing that we might not have budget to do a ton with this in future years. So getting the most out of it while we can. And then we'd like to involve the equity board to provide feedback on the proposed tool. So before it's even used, but once it's drafted, come to you all and say, this is what we're proposing. How do you think this will work? We'd like you all to recommend some programs for evaluation. I think that some of this will come up in phase 1 as well, but we'd like to get your input on, of all the city programs, what would you prioritize? And we'd like the consultant to return to you, or maybe staff return to you, with the results of the evaluation, so you all can see how it was used, what next steps are, that kind of a thing. We'd like them to provide a written report, and we'd like them to present to city leadership, and in this case, we mean city council, on the report findings, because this is when we're narrowing in to city programs. And so that they can report to city council and say, this is what we came up with, and this is what we think the next steps are for these programs, but also broadly for this work. This is written as a phased RFP, so we'd like the ability to revise the scope in phase 2, depending on what phase 1 shows us, just because we think we maybe need a little bit of that flexibility. All right, so I will pause there and see if there are any questions, if I can clarify anything about the phase 2 deliverables. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much. Just a couple. My question is, what do you what fits as a priority?
Some of that will be based on available data, frankly, and then probably the level of touch points with the community, thinking about the things that came through the equity framework process with you all. Some of those were more internally focused. I think we could evaluate those, but I think this is really about how our programs and services reach the community. So it should probably be a little bit more outwardly focused than that.
Okay.
Would
it be things like maintenance of parks, infrastructure, or summer programs, just all of those things to kind of fit? So some maybe ongoing operational work as well as more distinct programs.
Yeah, and I think we wanted 2 programs to be evaluated so we could have some level of contrast there. So we weren't evaluating 2 very similar things, but we could make sure that this tool works for kind of different, programs.
And then I'm just wondering about framing. So when I think about evaluation, that's usually after something's done, right? You see how well it worked, things like that. And so I think that we also need to be thinking prospectively, not only recapping what it was, but making sure that the report out of it is really clear on what needs to happen next to move us forward.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to me, I know evaluations are more retrospective. And so something that feels a little bit more future looking.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, maybe folks online or in the room?
Just a clarified question on what this tool might look like.
Mhm.
We don't know what this tool is at the
Yeah.
moment, but we have a sense of what that could look like. Are there examples from other disciplines?
There are examples from other cities. So when I came to you all in September, I provided a couple of examples, 2 from Minnesota, 1 from Oregon, and then 1 from California, but I cannot remember where, in California. And they all look quite different in terms of what they evaluate. I think at that time we'd had a discussion about what's the appropriate scope. And so we're really scoping it to city programs and not wider like community indicators, right? So there are tools out there that we might be able to adapt. It's just kind of an open question right now of what will work well for Issaquah. So. Okay, with that. Okay, so next step. So we're here on the yellow dot, which is you all reviewing the RFP. We'd like to, this might be optimistic, we'd like to put it out in November before the holidays to be open for responses, and like to use December and January to select consultants. That leaves us with a little bit of slack, but I think the ultimate goal is to really get a consultant on board by the end of Q1 26. So I think that leaves a fair bit of time for that. So that's all of my presentation. Let's, if it's okay with, well, maybe I can defer to the chair and see what questions we'd like to start with tonight, because we have quite a few of them.
Yeah, I think your questions as prepared are excellent. And a good, I guess, space for us to have some discussion on some next steps.
Awesome. Okay, so then I'd ask all of you, what do you think of the proposed community engagement, considering both budget and need? If not, what is missing? So what I have from our discussion already is that we need to add a little bit of that to the criteria to make sure that the consultant is adept at working with both elected leaders and community leaders, but maybe folks who haven't been brought in yet, and can find and recommend maybe ways to bring folks in who haven't been involved in the past. Did I capture that? Okay.
Yeah, and I think their application should be scored based on the level of expertise they show.
Oh yeah, you add it to the evaluation criteria. Okay, yeah. What else on community engagement?
I think our discussions covered it in terms of where I think we want to focus ultimately to make sure that we remove as much influence or bias that could be exercised by our decision makers within the process, because that's going to affect ultimately what we're going to get as part of phase 1.
Okay.
I wonder if the mode of engagement should be not just maybe a meeting where people have to show up and speak up, because maybe not everyone's comfortable voicing their opinion in that format. But maybe having a way to maybe send a letter or write something on a website or something.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're considering once we build the community engagement plan, is surveys. How can we get it to people electronically, not electronically? What are different language needs? Like that'll be something that we're talking about for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was something we talked about in our chair meeting, which was what are new communication methods that we can use to increase, just engagement, responsiveness. So.
All right, question 2 is, are the proposed touch points with the equity board the right ones? You'll recall that most of the touch points are really in phase 2, although of course, and it's not in the RFP because that's not quite the right place to put it, but we bring that community engagement plan for phase 1 to you all, but you all would interact with the consultant really in phase 2. Folks online, do you have any thoughts on that one? Okay, folks in the room?
sorry, maybe you already mentioned this, but are we involved in choosing who this consultant or company might be?
Yeah, we're gonna ask for one or two of you to serve on the committee. Yeah, so you'll work with staff. Yeah.
Oh, this is.
Sorry, I don't have.
Oh, that's okay.
Here. Yeah, you can like. Yeah, hang on.
I'll just.
Because I can scan it.
Sorry, I'm never sure how many to print. It's a
I
big
know.
packet to to print.
When the form is created for evaluating consultants,
Mm-hmm.
do we see it? Do we have feedback on it, or is that independent?
I think because it's gonna follow the criteria that's in the RFP, there probably won't be a ton of room for review, if that makes sense. So if you have any feedback on the criteria that you'd like to give, it'd be good to give it now. And I can pull up that section if we just want to take a quick look at it. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay.
Julian, I have a question.
Mhm.
Since we have a small subcommittee of the equity board working on updating the equity framework,
Mhm.
it appears to be a bit of an interesting overlap between the work that we're doing and what our to be named at a later point consultant is doing. Because they were using part of our work product as far as the current equity framework
Mhm.
that we're updating now. So
And because my understanding is that that group has set a March deadline.
Yes.
And the consultant might not be fully on board till the end of Q1, that hopefully these two things dovetail.
okay.
Or at least we can provide them with a draft equity framework, so they have a sense of where the kind of like the pre-planning work that we're gonna ask staff to do before they do new programs, before they cite a project, whatever it is. But they can have a sense of what that's actually going to look like.
Okay.
Beyond like the question list that we have right now. Okay, let me grab that criteria really quick. Yeah, okay. The big block of text. Okay. So criteria 1 is responsiveness of the proposal, and clearly understanding the work to be performed. Criteria 2 is demonstrating an understanding of the budget. 3 is qualifications of the person assigned to this project. We're looking for people who have worked, or firms who have worked with local government clients, who have equity inclusion experience working with diverse groups, and public engagement and facilitation expertise. So this is where I think we'll add in that other thing that Preeti, you had mentioned. And then criteria 4 is project management and ability to meet the timeline.
So one thing I'm noting in the review criteria, so I mean, I think I like the way the points are distributed. I think so. Some of the project management, like the words used, critical path diagram, QA, QC.
Oh yeah, it is.
They're very technical.
Okay.
And it might discourage some very capable consultants.
Yeah.
So I would be mindful of that. And I think there's just being cautious that the process isn't creating more barriers to like smaller consultants who
Have more experience working with the very people we're trying to serve.
yeah. I mean, I think that's the priority versus having so much experience with local government and things like that. Like, I would definitely rely on the experience with the populations versus their experience working with local government, for example. So just kind of staying true to the intent of this somehow.
Okay.
And then those aligned with sustainable and equitable purchasing guidelines, you know, like part of me is like, who's got the luxury to do that? I don't know, who's in its privilege to consultants and, you know, organizations, companies and that.
Yeah. That was ultimately, we went back and forth a lot on
Yeah.
that one, and we ended up landing on a place where that's not part of the formal evaluation criteria.
Okay.
That's a like tiebreaker almost.
Okay.
Like we have these criteria, or we have these guidelines. It would be really nice to use them for an equity-based RFP proposal. How can we do it in a way that isn't too burdensome? So, but I'll review it again to make sure that it's clear how it'll be used.
So,
Yeah.
is it considered the linchpin of the project that we get quality community engagement? Or is that one step along the road?
We made a very conscious decision to not spend $50,000 on community engagement, which I think we all know we very well could have.
Yes.
Right, so we need good quality engagement, but we need to be able to evaluate programs out
Right.
of this RFP as well. So I mean, it's both. And it's not the end all be all, I don't think we have the luxury of making it that.
I don't think that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
What I'm asking is, I'm looking at the review criteria. 30 points goes to the responsiveness of the proposal and clearly understanding the work. Is the work understanding public engagement in Issaquah and putting in a framework where we can improve and our whole system can rise up? Is that what we're trying to accomplish? And if it is, do we need more weight on their experience with community engagement?
If I'm understanding you right, so let me know if I'm not. I think we're actually, because we are going to be asking staff to really develop that community engagement plan and likely do a lot of it, right?
Mhm.
Design the survey, figure out how to send out mailers, who to send those to, what groups to engage with. I think that the community engagement portion of it is really limited to those few places where we're going to ask the consultant to have that face-to-face interaction in meetings or whatever kind of setting that looks like. So it's community engagement in service of creating the tool and the goals.
So how does the community engagement fit into what you just said? I think I'm getting confused.
Okay.
I mean, what I'm hearing you're saying is that the majority of the work is not the consultant, the majority of the work is staff. What I'm trying to rise up is that with community engagement, we all hear it in different ways, right? We all process it in different ways. And then the more it gets dissected by people who are not involved at that level, it can completely change. So I'm trying to sort out what the community says has on a process that is basing, it appears to me, is basing all this work on. And that maybe it needs to be a little more focused on not more community engagement, just more rising up, that the consultant's experience with community engagement is important. You see what I'm saying?
I do. I think staff was rightfully nervous that this is not a lot of budget to do almost like even just community engagement on something like this with. So that's why, like, I don't think ideally we would have had the consultant weigh in more and use their expertise more to craft a community engagement plan, right? With the help of staff, with the help of the equity board. But I think we distributed it a little bit differently to make sure that the consultant could really weigh in on the creation of the tool. And really lead that process. So let me just, I'm kind of a processor, so let me think for a second.
I think we're in agreement on that.
Okay,
I think we say it differently.
Okay.
So I think we're in agreement on
okay,
that. I am literally talking about the criteria for picking
Oh,
the
okay.
consultants, and I
Okay.
don't think I'm being clear.
okay.
So I am saying that it looks very small. It is part of 100 points. It's all rolled into a big category called responsiveness of the proposal and clearly understanding the work. That's where the consultant is, correct? Or am I confused?
So it also, like the community engagement that we are going to ask the consultants to do is also rolled into the qualifications of persons assigned to the project. Their ability to facilitate, to work with diverse groups also appears there in that point category, which, to be fair, does include a lot of other things, but is also one of the two highest scored point categories. Would you like, are you asking for it to maybe be called out separately?
I think I'm asking, yes,
Okay.
that may be what I'm asking for,
Okay.
is if we build it and we don't build it to the people, what's the point?
Okay.
So I want to make sure the engagement part is worthy and centered in this, right?
Kind of the garbage in, garbage out. If we have poor community engagement that we are setting city goals on,
Yeah.
those are meaningless unless we have that critical represented community engagement.
Okay. Okay. I'll think about it a little bit more. I don't know that it'll get called out as its own criteria. I'm wondering if the way we think about building the evaluation form and like the questions we ask staff and EB members to be looking out for, if that's where that's like best suited to make sure that we're reading the proposals with an eye for like quality and experience in community engagement.
I think being more explicit in those criteria, like for the qualifications, depth of experience in community engagement. You know, like,
Okay.
so that way people are, you know, whoever are reviewing the proposals are clearly looking at the application against the qualifications of community engagement.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
how they speak of criteria one, how skillfully they talk about community engagement in their plan. Because it's kind of buried in there. I can see it.
Okay. Okay.
There, but they get popped over.
Okay. Okay, so I have it to really call it out more in both criteria 1 and criteria 3 to really make it more explicit there. Okay. Thanks for your patience as I.
And your patience.
All right.
And what's the timeline for like this plan to be paid in?
For what? 1, 2, 3.
For like the consultant to like evaluate the goal on equity.
We'll see how long community engagement takes. We haven't even made the community engagement plan yet. But I mean, I think we are looking to certainly get through community engagement in 2026. And we would like to at least probably start phase 2 in 26 if we can as well. It'll be really instructive how long this like solicitation takes, I think. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think we left off on question 3. Are the proposed deliverables the right one? If not, what is missing? I think we've touched on this a little bit throughout our conversations as well.
That's a quick clarification on 2. Sorry, I know.
No, you're good.
Is there a quick way to see where the touch points are right now for the board?
Yeah, so where it's formalized in the RFP, which is just what the consultant is going to be looking at, we're definitely going to, staff is going to come back to you all with that community engagement plan, like we've talked about, to review the consultants with one or two of you. But we'd like the consultant to work with you all. We've identified 2 meetings is what we've kind of set aside, I think, with the equity board. One to, actually, I don't know why I'm trying to say it from memory, it's right here. So we'd like you to provide feedback on that draft tool before it ever goes out and evaluates a program. And at that same meeting, recommend programs for evaluation that'll accompany staff recommendations as well. And then we'd like the consultant to return to you all with the results of the evaluation and of the tool. Because it's not just like, hey, how are our rec programs doing? I think we'd like them to return to you all with, here's where the tool worked well, here's where it didn't, here's where we'd recommend changing it, that kind of a thing. So those are the 2 touch points that we've outlined for the consultant to have with you all.
Got it. Okay, so after those 2 meetings with the board, there's an opportunity to revise the tool and take the feedback from us and the work that they've done.
Yeah,
to improve the
that's our hope, is that we can do that. It might be staff that reworks the tool, right? Like it might just be that they make the recommendations for how to change it and we actually rework it. We'll see, but. How do you all feel about those touch points? Oh, I don't know why it's flickering. Okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. Awesome. Folks online, you're still with us? Yeah, okay.
Yep. I had a question real quick, if it
Yeah.
was possible. I didn't have that project proposal, or I couldn't access it in my emails. I wasn't sure if that or the PowerPoint, if it could be possible for it to be sent out or shared, just to kind of review it, because I'm myself sometimes a slow processor, so I'm like, I know I can make sense of this, but might be helpful just to kind of like review and then like kind of let it percolate a little bit.
No problem. How about I'll send it out again after the meeting along with the PowerPoint, which I know is not in your packet, and maybe just give you all like a week or a week and a half to get any feedback to me. How does that sound?
Thank you so much.
That's good.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. Okay, it sounds like the touch points with the board are okay. And we're on to the last question. Are there 1 or 2 of you who would like to assist with evaluation and selection of the consultant? That'll probably happen in like December to January of this year, of 25 and 26. And that'll involve, okay, sorry, let me, so that'll involve reading all of the proposals that come in, and then scoring them against the criteria that we talked about, discussing it with everyone, likely selecting 1 or 2, if there are kind of 2 people that stand out, or 2 firms that stand out, bringing them through maybe an interview process. I think for something with this much community engagement, we want to talk to to those people and see how we mesh and how they'll do. Evaluate those interviews and make a recommendation. So that's what's involved there. Okay, the preview is interested. Okay. Is anyone else interested in reviewing, in assisting with selection of the consultant?
I will, if no one else wants to.
Okay, okay. Okay, so I have Kelly and Preeti down. If you all take the next week and a half and you read it and you're like, I'm dying to be a part of this, then I'll kind of triangulate with the people who are involved.
And I'll step away if somebody
No
else
problem.
wants to do it.
Yeah. I will. Okay, awesome. Okay. That is all I had for you all. Thank you. I'll be revising this. The version that I'll send out to you all will be the same version that's in your packet. So I'll make some of the changes that we made today, but it'll just be a little bit of the full version. And then hopefully publication soon, and I'll be back in front of you all. That's all I've got.
All right. Excited you're doing it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
happening.
Thank you.
All right.
Perfect. That was great discussion on that item.
Yeah, Joanne or Leslie.
Yeah, I thank you for letting me sit in the meeting and see the process of how responsible members in the community have resolved. I don't, sometimes I don't look at consultants. I look at the peers in the community, people that are out there as mentors or as philanthropists that are funding their own, I guess, campaign to make a difference in their community. So when I hear the term consultant, I kind of get PTSD.
Yes.
Because many millions and millions of dollars have gone to consulting with no results and no resolve. And then it gets passed on to the next generation and the same thing. And the same thing, the consulting firms get fat and the community gets too skinny. So I'm saying, just as an observer, and I'm very critical. I'm an artist. I dissect everything and how things work. And what I've seen so far is you guys are tighter than a tick on a coonhound's back. Okay? Can I put it bluntly? Now, this is awesome. For me to experience this when I was getting a little bit PTSD on consulting firms and seeing what's going on in North Bend and Snoqualmie and Falls City and the outskirts and in Issaquah, seeing people who genuinely care and are real has been very helpful to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like our next agenda item is an update on the equity framework. I am in the good company of everyone in this room, but with the subcommittee members for the updating of the equity framework, and that's myself, Karthik, Kwan, Chris, that are working on the updating of the framework. So I just wanted to go over at a high level what we've done thus far. So I just introduced you all to who the subcommittee members are. So we've had 2 meetings, and first meeting was on October 6th. The second one was yesterday on the 21st. We have regularly scheduled meetings every other Monday at 7 p.m. on Google Meet. And we've determined that the points of contact in terms of reporting out what we've done as a subcommittee would be myself and Karthik. Our deadline to present the revised equity framework to the full equity board for your review and approval is in March of 2026. So thus far, we've reviewed and discussed the previous equity board feedback on the framework from September 2025 as well as January 2025. The subcommittee is currently gathering information using a spreadsheet. Thank you very much, Chris, for your amazing work on that document. So we're using a spreadsheet to identify questions city staff would consider as part of their use of the equity framework. And we kind of drill down into 4 areas, which is types of inequity, internal versus external processes, desired incomes, and then outcomes, excuse me, and then qualitative versus quantitative. So our overall goal is with using this particular spreadsheet is to develop these questions to maximize the usability of the framework by city staff. We had a lot of conversation during our first meeting on the 6th about making sure that we're not just feeding a document, but we're creating a document that's going to have a high level of usability and utility for the city departments that really want to interject equity in their deliberations and their work, whatever that might be. So did anyone else have anything that you'd like to add on the subcommittee that I did not cover?
Maybe one thing to add is,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you. I mean, you already captured some of this, which is we're trying to respond to some of the feedback around the framework is a bunch of really great questions, but it's not easy to use by various different departments. So I think we sub-selected 2 or 3 areas that we wanted to focus on as well, which I'm trying to see if I've got the notes here, but one is we're trying to do, we don't know yet if this might be the final outcome, but we might create a workflow that helps guide people through the series of questions, so it doesn't turn out to be another long list of questions that everyone needs to go through. And then I think we're also, if time permits, and I think if we have enough momentum, we'll try to provide some guidelines around data as well. So how to gather data, how to use it, how to distill it. What do you do if you don't have any data? Other ways to find proxies, are there clever techniques to use otherwise, etc. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Stuff. Does anybody?
I have to go. I don't want to miss this last.
No, don't do that.
I gotta get home. But thank you for letting me sit in.
Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Is there a way I can get in touch with you folks? How do I get in touch and follow through with this?
Yeah, I can write down, I don't have a business card on me, but I can write down my contact info and I'll share some information on how to stay connected to the equity board. Oh, yeah. Is that okay? I know you're interested in transportation too, so I'll send you some info on text.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. Does anyone have any questions in terms of what we've done thus far on the framework subcommittee that we can chat about, or any insights as to what I shared as far as our current work? Okay.
Just a reminder that the subcommittee will come back to every meeting y'all have, just to make sure that they're touching base and you all are appraised of what they're doing. And so they can ask you questions about what they should do next if they've got any.
Just a clarifying question, at some point, maybe not in the next few weeks, but actually, I guess we're only meeting once a month. Either in November or in December, would it make sense for the subcommittee to kind of show some of the preliminary work so we can kind of get feedback with sort of show and tell?
I have to imagine this board would be very interested in that.
That's an excellent question. Would that be something that we could probably do? And maybe we should talk to the other committee members to see if in November, if you think we'd be ready to kind of do a prelim show of our work.
November is a little bit of a funky meeting. It's a joint meeting with Human Services.
right.
So if you guys will probably meet anyway on just ED items, but you might have a little bit more time and space at that December meeting.
That
So
would give us a bit.
just
I think
something.
so. I like that. Okay, December it is.
I think Dale had her hand up.
That's what I was gonna say. December would be probably a better fit.
Cool, thank you.
Good deal. Thanks, Dale. Yeah, it looks like our next item, we're at number 7, other business announcements. Jillian.
Yeah, so this is what I covered in my staff report. So these are the 2 memos. The first one is about the transportation projects, the equity criteria and selecting them. So give that a read through, and happy to answer any questions that y'all have as you read through it. You can always reach out. And then the second one is the Issaquah Climate Action Plan update and equity board engagement. So that'll come back to you all in November. So you'll have an opportunity to really dig in on that at that time. And that's all I have for other business, but I think maybe there was another item. Okay.
Yes. Actually, let me pull it up. So thank you, Kelly, for reminding, I guess, us to talk about this. But I think last week, King County launched a Stop Hate hotline. And I think it's a particular, not only the topic, but as one of our work plan items, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we really wanted to create an opportunity. We talked about it within Issaquah. How do we lift up incidences of hate that or bias that have been showing up in our community, and especially those things that fall short of a crime. And it didn't feel appropriate to like direct or ask, Issaquah police to like field all of those calls and incidences. And we were looking at what other resources were available for this. And at the time, there wasn't really anything that was functioning very well. And so there is now a Stop Hate hotline that was launched. And so I sent Jillian and Dale the information. So maybe rather than me saying it out loud, we could probably just circulate it. Actually, I'll say it out loud in case anyone wants to review the notes. But the phone number is 833-STOP-H as the letter H, the number 8, and the number 1, which is so 833-786-7481. It's a toll-free hotline, non-emergency. And I talked to the office that is running this hotline. And what I learned was that it's anonymous. And so they're not going to ask for names of people. They would want the details. They'll capture some details about what the incident is. And they are very interested in getting some geographical information. So an intersection, an address, a zip code, whatever, whoever's calling is comfortable to provide. Because they want to see where patterns are emerging, which locations across the county. And so they can start understanding where these incidences are. They don't have to be crime. It could be someone, yelling something hateful, slurs, things like that. And you just want a place to announce it, to notify someone, because the idea is that these things may escalate and become more. And I know in Issaquah, there has been some issues that have come up. And so it seems like something that we would want to circulate. And so just wanting to make everyone aware. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if there is no other business in front of the equity board this evening, I think we can call this meeting, we can adjourn this meeting at 7:21 p.m. Okay, 1 minute behind our agenda. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, everyone on Zoom. A great evening.